Arthur and the 100th Sheep Under the Stars, an endless journey of sleep. Far away from the noisy cities, the honking horns, and the bright neon lights of the world, there was a place where even time slowed down, Silver Valley. This was an ancient piece of land where hills leaned against each other to sleep, and rivers flowed in whispers. At night, when the moon rose, the valley's emerald green grass would turn a silvery hue, looking like a sea of clouds descended to earth. At the highest peak of this valley stood a small stone cottage where the winds sang songs. Thin smoke curled from its chimney, and warm yellow light leaked from its windows. This was the home of Arthur, the valley's youngest but most talented shepherd. Arthur had tired himself out under the sun all day. He had led his flock up the mountain slopes, played his flute for them, and reunited lost lambs with their mothers. Now, it was night. The sky was like dark blue velvet sprinkled with diamonds. Arthur lay down in his wool-stuffed, fluffy bed. His pillow smelled of fresh lavender. His quilt was toasty warm. His loyal dog, Buster, was curled up on the rug in front of the fireplace, already deep asleep, snoring rhythmically. The owls outside had taken over the night watch. Everything was perfect for sleep. However, Arthur's eyes were wide open. He turned to the right, the warm side of the pillow touched his face. He turned to the left, the quilt tangled around his leg. He lay on his back, counting the wooden beams on the ceiling. 1, 2, 3, 4. But no. The sleep fairy seemed to have forgotten to knock on Arthur's door tonight. His mind was still wandering the mountains, planning tomorrow's chores, listening to the wind. This won't do, Arthur whispered into the darkness. Buster responded to his owner's voice with a twitch of his ear in his sleep but didn't wake up. Arthur thought, Grandpa always said, if sleep doesn't come to you, you must go to it. And for a shepherd, there was only one way to go to sleep, counting sheep. But Arthur wasn't going to count the random, faceless sheep everyone knew. He was going to count his own friends, his beautiful flock, knowing each by name. Arthur closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. He pulled the coolness of the mountain air into his lungs and stepped into the silver valley of his mind. In his mind, Arthur set up a low, white fence right in the middle of the valley, between two old oak trees. Beyond the fence was the land of dreams. The grass was softer there, and the wind was warmer. 1. Arthur said inwardly, without rushing. The leader of the flock, the proud Barnaby, appeared. Barnaby made a cling, cling sound with every step due to the brass bell around his neck. In his mind, Barnaby approached the fence. He stopped, sniffed the air, looked at Arthur as if to say, good night, and crossed over the fence with a heavy, confident leap. One sheep crossed safely, Arthur thought. 2. Next was Matilda. Matilda was always hungry. When she got to the fence, instead of jumping, she started eating an imaginary clover leaf at the base of the fence. Arthur smiled. Come on, Matilda, it's not eating time, it's sleeping time, he whispered in his mind. Matilda jumped reluctantly but gently, still chewing the grass in her mouth. 2 sheep. 3. 4. 5. These were the brothers Pip, Pop, and Pogo. They never walked, they always skipped. They bounced over the fence like rubber balls, full of joy. Arthur watched how their wool rippled in the air and how they rolled silently when they landed. As Arthur continued counting, his pulse began to slow down. 6. 7, 8. Number 8 was Sebastian. The most intellectual, serious-looking sheep of the flock. Before jumping, he would inspect the fence, calculate the distance, and cross with flawless technique. 9, 10. The 10th sheep was Bella. Bella always had a crown of daisies on her head left over from the day. When she jumped, a petal drifted from her crown and fell into Arthur's mind. Arthur watched that petal swaying in the wind. Left. Right. Left. Right. As the numbers approached 20, Arthur no longer felt the hardness of his bed. It was as if he, too, was lying on that soft grass in his mind. 19. 20. 21. The valley had begun to change. The sky was turning from navy to purple, and from purple to a deep indigo. The stars were bigger, brighter, and closer. The sound of the sheep's hoofs could no longer be heard. There was only a soft, hush sound. 25. 26. Arthur saw Oliver. Oliver was very fast, but as he crossed into the dream realm, even he slowed down. He floated over the fence in slow motion, as if suspended in the air. A sweet heaviness settled on Arthur's legs. It felt like a warm wave starting from his toes and climbing up, relaxing his body. 30. 31. It had become difficult to pick out the sheep one by one now, but his senses had heightened. He could feel the softness of their wool on his fingertips. 35. 36. The sheep's breaths were vaporizing in the cold night air, turning into little clouds. Every time Arthur inhaled, he felt like he was being pulled into those clouds. 49. 50. It was the halfway point. Even if Arthur wanted to open his eyes, he couldn't anymore. His eyelids were heavy as lead, but this wasn't an uncomfortable weight, it was a safe weight. After 50, the laws of physics in the valley began to change. 51. 52. These sheep, flora and fauna, didn't jump over the fence. They lifted their feet off the ground and glided across to the other side like feathers. Arthur now heard the sound of the wind outside like music. The wind was playing a harp in the branches of the trees. Buster's snoring was like the rhythm of a distant drum. 60. 61. The next sheep was Grandpa Wool. He was so old and so woolly that he looked like a walking cloud. When Grandpa Wool came to the fence, he didn't jump. The fence bowed down and made way for him. Grandpa Wool glided through like a layer of mist, with wisdom and calmness. I am a cloud too, Arthur thought. His bed wasn't holding him, he was melting into his bed. 68. 69. His thoughts began to fragment. A thought starting with, tomorrow the lambs, ended with, blue, soft. Logic was giving way to the abstract language of dreams. 75. 76. It was dark now, but the sheep were glowing. Each sheep's wool shimmered faintly as if it had absorbed the moonlight. Arthur saw Rupert. Clumsy Rupert. But here, on the edge of the dream, even Rupert was graceful. When he jumped, silvery stardust scattered from his hooves. 80. Arthur wasn't saying the number with his tongue anymore. His mind wasn't even whispering. The number was just a rhythm. A heartbeat. Thump. 81. Thump. 82. It was like swinging on a swing set. forward, back, forward, back. Every sheep was a swing, every number was a step. 88. 89. At this point, Arthur realized that the sheep weren't just jumping over the fence. After jumping, they were rising towards the sky and turning into stars. His flock was forming the constellations in the sky. 90. Arthur's consciousness was like a boat drifting away from the shore. Untethered, caught in the current, drifting away slowly and peacefully. 94. 95. He was approaching the end of the flock. But something was missing. Arthur waited on the border of that deep sleep. 96. 97. At the very back, there was a tiny lamb lagging behind the others. This was Luna, the smallest, brightest of the flock. Luna was watching the dewdrops on the grass, taking her time. Arthur called out to her in his mind, his voice like a whisper of wind, "Come on, Luna. Come." Luna lifted her head. She looked at Arthur with those huge eyes that hid the universe. Then she started to run. But this wasn't a run, it was a dance. 98. Luna approached the fence. Arthur felt the last tension in his body dissolve. His fingertips were numb. The muscles in his jaw relaxed. His breathing was as deep and slow as ocean waves. 99. Luna crouched on her hind legs. She got ready. And with her tiny body, she made a leap that defied gravity, a leap that felt infinite. Time stopped while Luna was in the air. Purple, violet, and silver dust spread all around. Arthur watched Luna cross to the other side of the fence, into that land of eternal peace. When Luna's feet touched the ground, she didn't turn into sound, she turned into silence. And Arthur let that final word pass through his mind. The word didn't fall from his lips, it only echoed in his soul. 100. With the 100th sheep, the fence vanished. The oak trees blended into the mist. Silver Valley gave way to a warm, soft, timeless void. Arthur was no longer counting. Arthur was no longer thinking. Arthur simply existed. The little shepherd drifted from that safe valley in his mind towards the unexplored depths of dreams. His quilt hugged him, his pillow supported his head, and the night embraced him with compassion. The fire inside the cottage died down, the embers turning crimson. Buster took a deep breath in and out. And Arthur fell into that sweet, uninterrupted, fairytale sleep that would last until morning. Good night, Arthur. Good night, Silver Valley. Good night, world. The end.